How to handle conflict without exploding, shutting down, or giving in. Hope everyone is doing well. Happy Saturday to you. And well, after a 2-week break, I'm back. I went away for a little bit of a trip, and now I'm back. I can now get back into doing some lives. So if you're with me, say hi in the comments, and we will get started. Now, so self-protection, that's what we're talking about. And self-protection is far more than most people actually think it is. And it starts from the inside out. So let's look at how handling conflict can happen without exploding, shutting down, or giving in. Let's talk about conflict, not just the kind that ends in yelling or slamming doors, but also the kind that leaves you second-guessing every word that you say, or sometimes didn't say. Maybe you've had moments like this. Now you try to talk about something important, and suddenly it turns into an argument. Or you walk on eggshells around someone just to avoid setting them off. Now, or maybe conflict is silent, tense, heavy. The kind you feel even when no one says a single word. That's external conflict. And it shows up in personal and professional relationships alike. But here's something most people miss. While we focus on the conflict with others, we often overlook the conflict within ourselves. The voice that says, say something, and the fear that replies, don't, because you're only going to make things worse. The part of you that wants to be heard, and the part that's terrified of what might happen if you are. So today, we're not just going to talk about what conflict looks like. We're also going to talk about what it feels like on the inside and out. Because, well, if any of you felt like you're constantly managing tension, holding your breath, or bracing for something to go wrong, you're not alone. Now, if this is your first time watching, I'm Robert, pleasure, and I help people handle conflict with calm, confidence, and clarity. Whether that's conflict that's around you or inside you. Because you deserve to know how to respond without losing yourself in the process. Now, if you come in live, if you are now watching, please say hi. See a couple of people on board, so welcome. Good to see you. Let me know where you're watching from. And if you watch the replay later, then just type replay in the comments and feel free to reflect as we go. But let's be honest. When conflict shows up, whether in our homes or at work, most of us only know two things. We blow up or we back down. We either react by snapping, shutting down, or walking away. Or we absorb by keeping quiet, holding it in, and then paying for it later. But here's the good news. there are other options. You can shift from reactive to responsive. And today, I'm going to show you how, with 3 key shifts that help you handle conflict in the moment without losing your voice or your peace. Now, even if you've tried every tip and tool before, read the books, seen the videos, or even been through therapy, if conflict still seems to hijack you in the emotional moments, this training could help you handle those moments differently. So, that's what the 3 shifts are here for. Because real self-protection isn't just physical. It's knowing how to protect your clarity, your confidence, and your emotional space. So, shall we dive in? Why conflict gets misunderstood and why that matters. Most of us grew up with a narrow definition of conflict. We were taught that conflict means loud voices, big arguments, and those dramatic blow-ups. But here's the truth. Conflict doesn't always raise its voice. Sometimes it hides in silence, in side glances, in withheld affection, in long pauses and short replies. And because we don't recognize these moments as conflict, we often don't respond to them until it's too late. But let's be real. Some of the most stressful conflicts in our life probably don't look like conflict at the time. They look like you are walking on eggshells. You're avoiding a conversation or replaying a moment in your head all night long because you weren't sure if you said or did the right thing. So, where conflict shows up? Well, conflict shows up in your personal relationships, where you keep quiet to keep the peace. In your workplace, where feedback feels risky, or you're expected to absorb more than you share. And most of all, in that inner tug of war between what you say or what you want to say and what you believe you are allowed to say. This is where conflict becomes chronic. And over time, it can feel like you are, well, let's just say your options are limited. Or we feel that way at least. But we explode and regret it. Or shrink and resent it. But what if there are other options? Let's look at the first shift. This one's labelled, recognize the moment of conflict. We can't manage what we can't recognize. So, the first step is to notice when you're in conflict, even if no one's yelling. Ask yourself this. What just changed in the moment? Did your chest tighten? Did the energy between you and the other person shift? Did you suddenly feel small, confused, or defensive? These are signals that and there's something that needs attention. Here's a real-world example. A woman I recently worked with, and I'm going to call her Mia. She said she never fought with her partner, but she constantly felt drained after conversations. Now, when we explored it deeper, we realized her partner would often dismiss her ideas with phrases like, "That's not a big deal," or "You're overthinking it." Mia never pushed back, and the reason why? Because she never saw it as being a conflict. But inside, she was torn between wanting to speak and fearing that she'd be labelled too emotional. That was conflict. It just didn't look like the kind she'd been taught to notice. When she finally recognized it, she was able to respond with this. "When you say that, I feel dismissed. Can we talk about this some more?" It was a small moment, but a big shift. Now, if you've ever been in a moment like that, drop recognize in the comments. So does any of this sound familiar? If you've ever kept the peace on the outside while falling apart on the inside, then this is for you. The second shift is labelled "Name what's happening" without blame. Once you've recognised that you're in conflict, the next step is learning to name it. And ideally, name it out loud so it has purpose, but when it's safe to do so. Not with judgment, not with blame, but with clarity. This is where so many people get stuck, because naming the problem feels like creating the problem. But when we can name what's happening in a grounded way, we take the tension out of hiding and give ourselves a chance to respond, not react. Here's a simple way to do it. Use a sentence like, "Something feels off. Can we talk about it?" Or, "I'm noticing I'm getting tense, and I'd like to understand what's going on between us." Now, this kind of language works best when the person on the other side is capable of mutual respect. But what if they're not? What if dealing with someone who twists your words, deflects blame, or makes you question your own perception? This is often the case when communicating with someone who shows, yep, you got it, narcissistic tendencies. In these situations, naming the moment still matters. But how we do it changes. Instead of inviting emotional vulnerability, you focus on clarity and boundaries. Try something like this. "I'm going to take a step back from this conversation. I'll return when things are more respectful." Or, "I'm clear on what I meant. I'm not going to keep defending it." You don't need them to validate your experience. But staying anchored in your truth without being pulled into the emotional storm is extremely important for our well-being. And that's still naming the conflict. The only difference is it's on your terms. If you've ever felt twisted in circles, trying to explain yourself to someone like that, type anchor in the comments. Now, let's return to situations where the relationship can hold honest dialogue. When you name what's happening with calm awareness. You're not accusing, you're inviting understanding. It gives the other person a chance to meet you there, and it gives you a chance to stay grounded instead of stewing or snapping. Here's a good example. Jordan constantly felt dismissed during meetings at work, especially by one specific colleague who would talk over him. At first, Jordan would let it go, until the resentment started leaking into other parts of his work. So we practiced this shift. Next time it happened, Jordan didn't explode or go silent. He simply waited for a pause and said, "I'd like to finish my thought first. Then I'm happy to hear yours." It was calm, clear, and direct. It reset the tone of the meeting instantly, without needing a confrontation. That's the power of naming something early, before it snowballs. If this resonates, type "name it" in the comments. Now, our third shift is labeled "choose one aligned action," even if it's small. Once you've recognized conflict and named it clearly, the final step is choosing one aligned action. Not a perfect response, not a dramatic change, just one small thing that reflects the version of you you're becoming, not the one stuck in old patterns. So why keep it small? Because when we're triggered, overwhelmed, or scared, our nervous system isn't looking for a breakthrough. It's looking for safety. And the fastest way to build safety is to act in alignment with your calm, confident self, just one small step at a time. Here's what that might sound like. I'm going to pause this conversation and come back to it when I'm clearer. Or perhaps try this. I hear what you're saying, and I need a moment to think. And another option. I'm not ready to talk about this right now, but I will come back to it. These are boundary setting without shutting down. They're self-protective without being defensive. Now here's an example. Danny used to feel overwhelmed during conflict with her mum. Every call turned into tension. She either shut down or spiraled into over-explaining. We practiced this simple alignment and put it into action. When the tension rose, Danny would say, "I care about this conversation, and I'm feeling it a bit off right now. Can I call you back tomorrow when I've had a chance to reset?" That one sentence changed the dynamic. It gave her time. It created space. And most of all, It reminded her that she gets to choose how and when to engage. That's what alignment looks like. Not control, but choice. If that's something you want more of, type choice in the comments. Now, let's take a moment to pause and reflect. Think back on a recent moment where conflict showed up. Maybe with a partner, a co-worker, or even just inside your own head. If you had practiced just one of these shifts, recognizing the moment instead of brushing it off, naming what was happening without blame, or choosing one aligned action instead of reacting, how might that moment have gone differently? And how might future moments go? It's not about getting it perfect. It's not about becoming more present, one decision at a time. Because, well, the more present you are, the more power you have. What starts to change when you understand conflict? How it affects you and how it impacts your relationships. Let's think. Here's what I want you to know. When you learn how to recognize and respond to conflict, rather than avoid or explode, you stop living in defense mode. You stop second-guessing yourself in every conversation. You stop rehearsing what you should have said or done. And instead, you speak with calm. You hold your ground with clarity. And you start to feel safe in your own skin again. This is what real self-protection looks like. And it's what I teach inside the A.S.P.I.R.E program. Not just how to handle conflict with others, but how to handle conflict inside you. So you can move through life calmer, with more confidence, more clarity, and a whole lot more peace. Now, if you're watching, and hopefully you still are, close your eyes and imagine this. You walk into a conversation you used to dread, and this time, you stay calm, speak clearly, and walk away without second-guessing yourself. How would that feel? You stop apologizing for your feelings and start expressing them in ways that actually get heard. You're able to start setting and maintaining boundaries without needing to justify them, because you finally trust that they're valid. And even in tough moments, you feel more in control of your response, your energy, and your voice. How could this positively impact your life? This isn't about becoming a different person. It's about reconnecting to the strengths, clarity, and calm that's already in you, and learning how to use it when it matters most. That's the kind of shift we create within A.S.P.I.R.E. If today's live resonated with you, and you're tired of feeling stuck in the same patterns, I can help. I offer a free 30-minute consult. Not a pitch, not a pressure call, just an honest, grounded conversation to explore what conflict is really costing you. What calm, clear communication could look like. And yes, whether the A.S.P.I.R.E program is the right fit to help you get there. If that feels like the next step, drop "Let's talk" in the comments or send me a direct message and I'll personally reach out. As always, thank you for being here. And thank you for reflecting. Most of all, thank yourself for being open to this kind of growth. Stay calm, stay kind, and stay clear. You don't have to fear conflict. You just need the tools to meet you where you are. I'll see you next time. All the best and enjoy the rest of your weekend. See ya.